dividends have played an important role in generating equity returns historically. In fact, over the past 80 years, dividends have contributed approximately one-third to the total return of the S&P 500. And a company's dividend track record is often seen as a sign of corporate maturity and balance sheet strength. Hello, I'm Ganti of S&P Dow Jones Indices, and joining me today to explore what makes the S&P Dividend Aristocrats Index Series unique are Liz Bebb and Ben Voros of S&P DJI. Thank you both for joining me today.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. So to start us off, Ben, I'd love to know what are some of the income trends and dividend trends that you're seeing in the market today?
Yeah, as you pointed out in your introduction, Anu, dividends have played historically a very important role, both as a source of regular income and also in generating equity total returns. In the US market, for example, in the past 14 years, we have seen increasing dividends every single year and the 12th consecutive year of record payouts for the S&P 500 companies. And this bottom-up view of the increasing importance of dividends is corroborated by a top-down look at the economy. The US Bureau of Economic Analysis maintains a long-term time series on US household income statements. And what it shows is that since 1981, the importance of dividends, the share of dividends in household income has increased from under 3% to over 8%, whereas the importance of interest income has been steadily decreasing from 17% to under 8% most recently.
Interesting. No, that's fascinating to see that upward trend for dividends and the downward trend for interest income. And now, Liz, over to you. You know, when we think about approaches to getting dividend exposure, we know that not all the approaches are created equal. And that's what makes the Dividend Aristocrats so unique. So I want to hear from you about the Dividend Aristocrats, what the index is, what does it take to be a member of this index?
The Dividend Aristocrat Indices are very interesting. They measure companies that actually consistently increase their dividend over time, so that growth characteristic is there. The S&P 500, for example, the Dividend Aristocrat version of that, actually increases dividends for 25 years consistently. So that's quite a long time period, as you can imagine. And when we look at the underlying characteristics of these indices, we actually see the quality characteristics coming through. So they've got robust cash flows, robust balance sheets. And sort of looking at the performance metrics, they actually outperform their benchmarks over the long term. They have those enhanced dividend yields that we like. And also they participate in upward trending markets, but they are defensive in downward trending markets. They fall less because of the lower volatility.
So Liz, we've talked about the Dividend Aristocrats, and we know that they've outperformed historically during down markets. But what about the high-yield dividend aristocrats? What do they bring to the table?
So the S&P High Yield Dividend Aristocrats looks at companies across the US market spectrum, and it also has a 20-year consistent dividend growth requirement. So it's quite a robust methodology. And when we think about this, we know that there's downside protection for falling markets. We've documented that extensively historically. But what we wanted to do was extend this analysis to look at growth and inflation market periods. We did that recently, and it was fascinating to discover that in slowing growth markets, the HIDA actually performed quite well, especially in periods of rising inflation. So slowing growth, rising inflation, we saw outperformance versus the benchmark. That was good. We kind of expected it, but the defensive downside protection side was showing through. But we were also interested to discover that the long-term growth rate of dividends over about 25 years has been over 4%, whereas the inflation rate has only grown at 2.5%. So you're seeing benefits there too. But the interesting thing was in falling inflation markets, the benchmark and the HIDA performance was very similar.
Interesting. And now switching gears a little bit back to you, Ben, thinking about income, approaches to income, what about the market participants that are looking to align sustainability with income exposure? How should we think about that?
For market participants who want to align ESG objectives with the long-term dividend growth profile of the traditional Dividend Aristocrats index family, S&P Dow Jones Indices launched the S&P ESG Dividend Aristocrats index family in 2021. So if you look at the high-yield Dividend Aristocrats, for example, it also has an ESG version called the S&P ESG High-Yield Dividend Aristocrats, which comprises the constituents of the traditional S&P High-Yield Dividend Aristocrats that also meet specific ESG criteria. Underlying the index methodology are the S&P Global ESG scores, which are made unique by a specific corporate sustainability assessment. And what's unique about it is that unlike data sets, ESG data sets that rely purely on publicly available information, the S&P Global Corporate Sustainability Assessment relies on an in-depth engagement with the companies, and every answer that companies give to that sustainability assessment are also matched against public data sources for every single company that's in the index.
Interesting. Well, this has been very helpful to understand the importance of dividends historically, how we should think about different approaches to gaining dividend exposures, and the importance of using indices as tools to think about these exposures. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To learn more about dividends and the S&P Dividend Aristocrats indices, please visit us at the link below.